Chris Doyle in London. He's the Middle East commentator and director at the Council of Arab-British Understanding. Chris, good to see you. So this is perhaps the first time we are seeing Benjamin Netanyahu indicate a possible permanent end to Israel's onslaught on Gaza. Is it because Donald Trump's magic has worked?
I think that Netanyahu is playing for time, actually. I think that he knows that he's got a couple of weeks of the Knesset being in session before it goes off for its summer break, and similarly also that Congress will also be in recess, as well as many European parliaments. So this is all about kicking the ball down the road. This is not about giving cast iron commitments that there's going to be a proper ceasefire with a commitment to end all military hostilities, nor does it give the sort of commitments that are necessary in terms of the proper provision of aid, which, as your reports show so graphically, are urgently needed. It is beyond desperate. I think that we've all lost words to describe this. And at the same time, Netanyahu has not backed away from that utterly ghastly plan of, herding Palestinians into a transit camp over the ruins of Rafah city. I cannot think of anything so macabre, so appalling, certainly in this century.
But here's how I'm looking at the development. Why should Palestinians believe what Netanyahu is saying? He has deceived Palestinians time and time again. In fact, if you look at the ceasefires that have been reached within the region involving Israel, let's say Lebanon, for example, Israel has violated the Lebanon ceasefire brokered by the United States more than 3,000 times. So even if there's a ceasefire in Gaza, what's the guarantee Israel is going to abide by it?
There's absolutely none. And I don't think actually that the Palestinians nor the Lebanese have been particularly hoodwinked by Netanyahu. I think that there was precious little trust even when they had those ceasefire agreements, because they know their recent history. They know that Netanyahu has a habit of doing this. But frankly, given the superior military might of the Israeli armed forces, there hasn't exactly been a lot of choice, and that their people need, certainly in Gaza, but also in Lebanon, they need a break. They need some pause from this utter horrendous, tsunami of atrocities that is visited upon them day in, day out. So one can hardly blame any Palestinian leadership of whatever ilk in signing up to some form of ceasefire, because the pressures on the ground in a situation where the healthcare system has been decimated, where people are starving, where there is no water, where there is no fuel, it means that they are utterly desperate. So I don't think that anybody is really in a position where they believe Netanyahu, or indeed President Trump, who also has made different noises, made different promises, who lacks any clarity or conviction in the sorts of positions that he takes up. And I think that this makes the entire region nervous. It certainly makes Palestinians in Gaza nervous. And I think ultimately the fact that there is not really a proper drive to a meaningful ceasefire is actually not in Israel's interest, let alone its neighbors. I think this will drag Israel further into the quagmire of an everlasting war that they won't be able to recover. They won't be able to get those remaining hostages back alive, hopefully, those who have perished already. And they will not actually build up a degree of security, because they are sowing the seeds, and have been for 20 months, of a generational conflict that will continue.
Right. I mean, certainly, many would say, as you pointed out, Chris, that no one believes in Netanyahu. In fact, if you look at what's happening within Israel right now, his own far-right government is at odds with him. But, let me ask you something interesting here. Do you believe there's distrust when it comes to the relationship between Donald Trump and Netanyahu? Do they believe each other?
I think that Netanyahu plays Donald Trump. I mean, look at those scenes where he hands over the letter nominating Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Netanyahu knew in Trump's first term how to flatter him, how that sort of works. I don't think that Netanyahu necessarily trusts Trump. I think Netanyahu knows perfectly well that Trump is his own man, that he is whimsical, he's prone to changes of mind depending on who he's last spoken to. But also Trump has demonstrated that he doesn't always trust Netanyahu as well, that he's gone behind his back. He opened direct talks, for example, with Hamas. He signed up to a ceasefire agreement with the Houthis, even at a time the Houthis were actually sending missiles to Israel. So there's plenty of occasions where Donald Trump has also charted a very separate course to that of Netanyahu, or one that Netanyahu would have wanted to have seen. But they are forced to work with each other. They have a relationship. The question really, I think, on most people's minds is Trump willing to put the sort of pressure on Netanyahu consistently, not just one-off with his posts? We'll all recall the way in which he forced Netanyahu to call back the Israeli planes that were on the verge of bombing Iran once again. Is he prepared to do that on a consistent basis and on the basis of principle, to say to Netanyahu, you have to let in UN agencies and associated agencies into Gaza. You have to stop the bombing. You have to stop the expansion of settlements. The reality is we've seen no sign that he is prepared to do that. It is periodic statements of perhaps disappointment, but not meaningful pressure. He hasn't, for example, in any way paused those massive transfers of weapons and bombs to Israel that allows this genocide to continue.
Fascinating insights. Chris Doyle, thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. Appreciate your taking out the time.